Well, welcome everyone to the July board meeting for Ignite CDA, Coeur d'Alene's Urban Renewal Agency. If you'd all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's time for some public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, we can move on to the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar consisting of June board minutes, approval of payables, and approval of district monthly financial statements.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Next up, Finance Committee.
Oh, I guess I'm going to defer to Executive Director Burns to walk us through some of the discussion that we had at the Finance Committee for the benefit of the rest of the board regarding the amended budget, the fiscal year 26 budget, and the fiscal year 25 audit engagement letter.
Thank you. So I have on the screen a summary of the amendments for fiscal year 2025. As you know, the process that we use for amending budgets and for setting budgets is that the Finance Committee reviews these at the July Finance Committee meeting, which happened, and then the board reviews these at the July board meeting, which we're doing today. And then if you're satisfied with these draft budgets, you direct me to go ahead and place advertisements in the Coeur d'Alene Press for a public hearing that will happen at the August board meeting. So that's the process for both of these budgets. So what you see on the screen, and I have some handouts on the dais there, is the proposed amendment for fiscal year 2025. The amended values are in red, and I just have several comments about some of the values that you see. So on line one, a fairly large variance in the Atlas District updated starting value reflects the timing of project spending for the Atlas project as well as actual levy rate values. On line four, the amended tax increment revenue receipts for the district are increased due to calculations using actual levy rates and updated county valuation numbers. As you recall, when we budget, we don't have actual levy rates for this year, so we have to use old levy rates, so things move around a little bit based on our timing that we have to do under Idaho code. On line six, the amended interest and miscellaneous fund values decreased due to lower interest rates paid on district cash balances. On line eight, the property divestitures, the Atlas District amended value reflects no sale proceeds due to withholding the sales of Area 5A and Area 7 in fiscal year 2025. Line 25, public art. These amended values reflect more accurate calculations based on actual levy rates. And as you recall, those funds will be brought to the board for dispersal to the Arts Commission at the city at the September board meeting. On line 30, the budgeted planning costs for the River and Atlas districts will not be spent. I'm going to put a little asterisk on that because that could change based on the decision that this board will make later in this board meeting. Should you agree to fund some spending for a proposed master planning initiative. So if that happens, I'll probably roll back the $50,000 that I've taken out of the Atlas district on that planning line item and put that back in so that we have funds in FY25 to spend on that initiative, and we have funds in FY26 if it rolls into October. So that would be, if you make that decision later in the board meeting, I'll bring that back as an amendment to this at the August board meeting. On line 31, the agency-funded programs, the River and Atlas District amended values pertain to the dynamics associated with the Atlas project. So you see those changes. On line 33, the River, Atlas, and Health Corridor District special project reserve accounts are set to zero. We have no anticipated need for those budgeted funds in FY25. So with those comments, I'd entertain any questions and look for a motion directing me to go ahead and publish this amended budget in the press prior to the August 20th, 2025 budget public hearing date.
Any questions for Tony? Seeing none, how about a motion then to approve the amended budget?
I'll make a motion to approve the amended budget.
Are we approving the amended budget, or are we?
Excuse me, to approve for publication.
Approving the publication of the budget.
Excuse me, I'll stand corrected. Make the motion to approve for publication the amended budget that was reviewed and submitted today in the packet.
Fiscal year 25.
Yes, sir.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries.
Next item I have, Mr. Chairman, is for fiscal year 2026 budget. Same process. As you recall, under Idaho code, we are required to approve a budget in August and send it to the city by September 1st of each year. So once again, we're reviewing draft budgets at the July board meeting, and then we'll have a public hearing at the August board meeting. Then we'll send the approved budget to the city as per Idaho code. So just some general comments around the 2026 budget that you see on the screen and that you have in front of you. That once again, kind of a caveat, the tax increment revenue budget values derived using old 2024 levy rates. These budgeted tax increment revenue values for each district may come in higher or lower than the projected due to how the levy rates are set by the tax entities later this fall. So we're kind of waiting to kind of see what happens, and then we'll adjust as we need to. On the River District is supporting 50% of the G&A for the agency. The planned tax increment revenue for fiscal year 2026 is $1.9 million. The River District 2019 note draw is for $0. I don't see any need to be drawing any more funds from that Washington Trust Bank loan at this time. The arts percentage is set at 1% of the tax increment revenue that will be received from the county. That's a standard as it's been for the past few years. There's no property divestiture income for the River District. The Health Corridor District does not begin reimbursement in FY26 to the River District for the accrued HDR master plan and legal costs for the Dow and traffic study. The Atlas District does not begin principal reimbursement to the River District in FY26 for accrued loan debt, so that does not happen either. The special project reserve is set at $350,000. And for the Atlas project in the River District, the FY26 budget contains $127,000 for 2 monument signs located at the Atlas Road entrance. And we have another $42,500 in this fiscal year to spend on those should we get pricing and get underway. So that's still, those two funds will be additive, and that's kind of what we're anticipating the pricing is going to be, but we haven't gotten that yet, but it's budgeted for those values. Shifting over to the Atlas District, we have a 25% share of the G&A. The planned tax increment revenue for FY26 is $658,000. River District loan, $0. We don't anticipate needing any more funds from the River District, for any fund from the River District loan to the Atlas District. The arts is set at 1% of the tax increment revenue received from the county. Bank line of credit is set to $0. We don't see a need for that at this time, but we might amend the budget should we need that and reach out for a bank line of credit. We haven't established that yet, but we've talked in the Finance Committee about potentially getting that if we need to kind of help with funding for the district. But right now it's set at $0. We can always amend the budget if we need to on that front. The agency does intend to reimburse the city for city acquisition costs of the Atlas Mill Site properties located within the Atlas District boundary, land costs, and railroad right-of-way cost reimbursements of $5.3 million. But there is no FY26 payments for those funds at this time. Once again, we're pushing those out a little bit in the time frame in the Atlas District because of cash flow issues and things we need to do. So we're looking a few years out before we consider those reimbursement amounts. The agency does intend to reimburse the city for structural fuel material costs for the Atlas project. This is a 50-50 split with the River District of $153,000. No FY26 payments on that front either. So we're still kind of holding off on reimbursing the city until the Atlas District takes care of all its business it needs to. We have time on that front. The property divestiture income, $3.3 million. This is comprised of the Atlas Area 7 at $1.8 million and Atlas Area 5A at $1.5 million. So we have put those, as you recall, we withdrew them from the FY25 budget. Now we're rolling them into FY26 to hopefully that the market will sustain and support those sales. But we are also considering Atlas Area 7 in this potential GGL master planning initiative too that we'll talk about a little later. Special project reserve is $100,000. And the Atlas project, the FY26 budget calls for $3.1 million of spending on Phase 3 design and infrastructure, basically rolling over most of what was planned in FY25 because of just a timing issue. And finally, the Health Corridor District, 25% support of G&A for the agency. Planned tax increment revenue for FY26 is $600,000. The revenue plan River District loan of $0. On the revenue plan, tax anticipation note with Kootenai Health as a possible guarantor is $0. Revenue plan Kootenai Health pilot contribution is $0. So we're not expecting much to come in on the revenue side in Health Corridor District other than some tax increment and some interest. Arts is 1% of tax increment. That is the same as the other districts. The Health Corridor District does not begin principal and interest reimbursement payments to the River District in FY26 for loan debt associated with HCR master planning and legal costs for the Dow traffic study. Special project reserve is set at $50,000, and we have an Ignite partnership spending for possibly enhancing ped bike trail mobility of $50,000. So that's kind of an overview, broad overview over the budget. Entertain any questions you might have. Once again, we ran this by the Finance Committee. They asked some very good questions, and we chatted about it, and they were supportive of kind of what we got laid out here. But happy to address any questions you have.
Any questions for Tony?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. The new kids were chatting down here. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Tony, can you talk a little bit more about the bike ped mobility?
Well, I don't know how much more I can share. We kind of stuck that in there hopefully to stimulate some action with our stakeholders up there. We talked about some mobility improvements with the stakeholders last year with ITD and the big plans they were going to do, and that just kind of all faded away. So hopefully we can maybe be an instigator in getting some thinking up there about some type of mobility with the partnerships. It could be more than $50,000 our share. If anybody else is interested, the city, Kootenai Health, others, but there's nothing defined up there. We're just some seed money.
Any other questions? Well done, Tony.
Agreed.
We needed a
I
motion
would
to
look at a similar motion to go ahead and
to,
publish this
discuss
and we'll
and
bring it back for a public
publish.
hearing at the August 2025 budget hearing date.
Based on the discussion regarding the fiscal year 2026 budget and the documents provided, I would move that we approve the publication of this budget so that we can move forward with the approval in August.
Second?
moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is the fiscal year 2025 audit, Hoover CPA engagement overture. I shared this with the Finance Committee. We talked about the proposed audit fee for fiscal year 2025 is $12,500. It was $11,000 last year. We think Mr. Hoover made some good arguments about why it should be a little higher this year after all the work he's done trying to kind of get the CIP figured out on the Atlas project. So the Finance Committee is supportive of that, and I'm supportive of it also, and we bring it forward for your consideration.
Questions?
I just, from the Finance Committee standpoint, like to make a comment in that Mr. Hoover did do a lot of extra work that he was not technically compensated for in this year because he did not include it in his original proposal to us. So our recommendation was, if this is going to continue to be extra workload because of some of the changes in the rules and the progress that we're making on some of our projects, that the best thing to do would be to increase the price in next year's letter. So that's part of the conversation around that. That's typical of what I've seen in audits. If they give you a fixed price, unless they tell you in advance, you pay them the fixed price, and if you have to negotiate the following year because things are changing, you do that then. So that's the process that we suggested Tony work with Mr. Hoover on. So just a little additional background for the rest of the board.
Great summary, Commissioner Garcia, great. Seeing none, all in favor?
Did
Was
somebody
this-
make- No, we didn't make a motion.
Yeah,
Okay, who made the motions?
I'm in favor of a motion.
Aye.
Were you going to? No. I'll make a motion to accept the Hoover CPA engagement letter for fiscal year 2025 audit.
But I will second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Okay, that's it for the Finance Committee. Next up, the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you,
Tony.
Mr. Chairman. So first off, we have an Atlas Project Ad Hoc Committee, GGLO Architects, Heartland Real Estate Consultants, Welch Comer Engineers Phase 3 Attainable Home Ownership Master Planning Initiative. I tried to come up with an acronym for that, but I did not succeed, so I just had to read the whole thing. So, as you know, Ignite CDA Board Commissioners Miller, Jester, and Meyer are members of the Atlas Project Phase 3 Ad Hoc Committee. The Ad Hoc Committee recently spent time with Mark Sindell of GGLO Architects, along with representatives of Welch Comer Engineers and Heartland, discussing the value proposition of a master planning initiative pertaining to attainable home ownership on the Atlas Project Phase 3 site. I would ask Phil Boyd to come up to discuss this proposal with the board. You have a copy of the proposal that was sent out to you, and Phil can shed some more light on this proposal as well as answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Tony, Chairman Hoskins, and Commissioners. So as Tony said, the ad hoc committee was working through, having discussions with potential other folks that might participate in the build-out of the Phase 3 area in an attainable housing way. And it became clear, I think, to the committee that this is a little bit nebulous, and it's not really super clear on what we might be able to achieve here in the venue of product type and of the density of the different product types there in a way that we would know would be done well and reflect what Ignite's vision is there for a quality attainable housing product and what can be achieved in the current market. All those things were just not super clear, and they wouldn't be because we don't have the data for that. So as we talked about it, we suggested bringing forward Mark Sindell, who does urban planning and different product types and can identify the product types that would fit in there as opposed to just a conventional subdivision layout, which is what we traditionally see, especially when you're trying to achieve higher density. So we worked through that, developed the scope of services that you see in front of you. Tony ran it through the ad hoc committee members, the board members, who had several good observations, and we responded back to them. And the idea, the way that the task list is written out is to kind of proceed through it incrementally and give the control of how deep we go to the ad hoc committee. So we're going to start broadly. We'll do some initial test fits of product, of density, product type. The committee can look at it and say, gosh, that one doesn't seem like it really resonates with us. Let's toss that one and let's proceed with this one. Then we intend to go out and vet these with the development community because we think it's important, and the committee thought it was important, that the people that might be potentially building these that would respond to a future RFP got to look at this. And so it was responsive to their input. We can bring that back to the committee and say, here's what the development community is telling us, both from what they see as marketable and also price point, or what they're paying to construct these things. Because we are seeing some softening in the, we are seeing a little bit of softening in the construction market, at least some of the things we've heard recently. So that was the next step, bring that back to the committee, and then ultimately it will end up back here in front of the board. Also, as part of this, there's going to be infrastructure associated with public infrastructure that would support these developments. And so we would do conceptual layouts of those and actually then estimate the value of that work as well. So the board has a complete picture. If we spend X amount of dollars building the infrastructure, we do this to support the attainable housing. Here's what we can achieve as far as area median income percentages, the target there, and here's what the product types would look like. And here's what the vision is. And that's one of the things that is so valuable that GGLO brings to the table is the architecture and the layout, because I can do my best, but it's never going to be what the architects and the urban planners can put together. And I think that product will be important, communicating this idea more broadly to the city council perhaps and to the community at large, because I think the thing we want, all of us want that are on that committee, is to make sure whatever we do is done well, and it is perpetual and it achieves the goals that Ignite wants. So with that kind of long-winded discussion, I'm glad to answer any questions about the scope of work that we have.
Questions?
I have a quick question. Sorry, I just got a chance to look over the memo. I didn't get a chance to look at it before. Although it wouldn't probably change the cost of your scope or your pricing, the construction cost estimates, why would you include that if that's pretty much typically on the builder and they're going to be ranging anyways?
Because we need to be able to figure out the AMI target that we can achieve. And so probably if we go in and we say all the homes are going to be at $400 a square foot, and I'm picking a high number, but we're trying to hit an AMI target of 100% of AMI. That's the group we're going to target. By the time you estimate it at $400 a square foot, it's unlikely you're going to get any at 100%. If we talk to the builders and they say, gosh, we're building this product right here, this particular product, and we're building it at $280 a square foot. This one over here, we're building at $395 a square foot. That's going to shape some of the product type selection and diversity that occurs in the subdivision, and we need to do enough calculations to run those back through the ad hoc committee and ultimately to the board, is based on these estimated construction costs, and we're just mining them from the developers. Here's what we think we can achieve from a AMI percentage in these different product types. Am I catching the question?
Yeah, I mean, AMI is different than, never mind. I just think that the construction cost will eventually obviously be on the builder, just to see what their profitability would be like. And then the AMI is the area median income anyways. So it seems like you'd already have those numbers.
I might be missing the point.
Can I jump in, Mr.
You
Chairman?
bet.
If I recall, one of the conversations went something like this, in that if we're going to put out to an RFP that we want between 80 and 120% AMI to the builder, they can figure out what that number is. Let's call 100% $90,000 for conversation's sake. But 30% of that $90,000 annual income for that person is what the mortgage has to be in order for it to be attainable for them. And if you walk backwards into that home price, that's going to tell you what that home price is. So they were saying, with our ability to say what percentage of AMI are we looking at in how many of these units, maybe some of them, a certain number are 80%, another number of them are 120%, or maybe a builder can do an RFP that ranges within there. Does that sound familiar? And so needing the construction costs of what that end unit is going to cost was basically the way to go backwards to determine what the number of AMI units would be within the product. Did that help?
I understand that. I was just saying it's a range anyways, so anyways, I was just thinking of the overall dollar amount to your scope. Could there be some leaner ways of approaching it if you didn't have to build in construction cost estimates and those builder interviews. So I was just trying to get to the, if you already have the end number, then you might not have to do those steps in
Do the
between.
work.
Yeah.
Now I understand the question. That level of work is not a gigantic part of the scope, but it could, if we were to strip out the builder interviews and just say, nope, we're just gonna say we want between 80 and 120% of AMI, and we want 60% of the development to be at 80%, and 20% to be at 100, and another 20% to be at 120, and that's what we want, and we'll put that RFP out. The thing we were worried about, and GGLO actually did this in Ketchum, because they did that very thing, and then they put the RFPs out, and all the developers came back and said, we really appreciate that that's what you guys want. Unfortunately, it's not achievable unless you significantly improve your underwriting of the project. We can't do this. So they took 6 months' worth of work and threw it in the garbage. And so that's what Mark Sindel was saying, the suggestion of we should go communicate with the builder community, find out what's achievable, and then come back and tell this group, we all want this, but here's what the builder community is telling us is actually achievable in the current market. So that was the purpose of the builder interviews. Hopefully that makes sense, and you guys find value in it, but you're right, Commissioner Metz, that if you decided that we don't think that's necessary, we could literally, the ad hoc committee could direct us not to do it. The proposal is to do the work hourly, and so we could just not do that work.
I guess by the time you get to that task, a lot of the other tasks will be done, and you may not even need them by the time you get to that task. So
Good point.
solid process.
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah.
I appreciate having two site layout concepts options. The variability in the cost of the scope is $15,000 based on pursuing all the tasks associated with each layout. So would we need a kind of no-go at some stage so we know when we're dropping layout 2 or layout 1? I mean, is there a stage gate early on so that if there's a clear failure point with one of them, we know that and we stop work? Or is there also a possibility of combining 2 layouts as we go through? I mean, basically, should we make any assumptions around those 2 layouts in terms of the progress and the proceeding go, no-go?
Yes, the go, no-go would, I think will shake out early.
Okay.
Because we'll have a couple of test fits. And some of it will come down to the topography of the site, and maybe a real simple way to think about it is, we can go in and do this layout. The site costs are very low to do this layout, but the house costs will be very high because the houses have to be more structural. Think of daylight basement to deal with the topography. Or we could do this site layout, which will be more expensive because we're going to put in a bunch of retaining walls that will allow the house construction to go down. So the retaining wall cost goes on to the master developer, you guys. There's 2 different layouts there, and look what the density we can achieve with this layout, because with retaining walls, and we're manipulating more topography, we can increase the density. The ad hoc committee might look at that and say, gosh, we really like this one. We understand the site costs are more, but it gives us more density. We'll have a lower price point. We'll have more diversity of product type. Let's throw this one out and move forward with this one.
Okay.
They also may look at it and say, gosh, this one seems kind of expensive. We're not sure if we're ultimately going to be able to afford it. Let's nurse them both along. So that was the intent, was to, we're kind of starting at the funnel broadly, but intending to allow the committee to direct the actions. And if one of the options doesn't make sense, we'll quickly get out of it.
Yeah.
And there's, as you guys know, there's enough brain power between Commissioner Meyer, Jester, and Miller, that between the 3 of them, they'll, I think, pretty quickly get to that. And as well as Hillary Patterson is on the group with us as well. So there's plenty of brain power to help direct that. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think your examples are great. It just kind of brings to mind what the criteria will be for the ad hoc, what, the 7 factors of like
Yep.
feasibility, builder perspective,
Yep.
topography, all those things. So I think if we can have visibility into not all the work that you guys are doing, it's not a matter of trusting the expertise, but kind of what are the parameters that will drive the
Yep, and I think
Factors.
we'll be back here each month.
Yeah.
I imagine, Tony, we'll have me making a presentation each month, and the ad hoc committee will say, hey, gosh, we need the full board to hear these things, and here's kind of where we're headed. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't anticipate you'll hear us now, and then we'll come back and say November and say, we're done, surprise.
Yeah,
We'll have interim reports for the board to weigh in on.
great, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, that a little color commentary and then perhaps a question to you, Phil. GGLO comes very highly regarded with experience in this. They're doing a project in Ketchum, as Phil mentioned. They have some great experience on a project in Missoula. I was really impressed with Mark and his background. And so one of the things that would be the next step of this is, are we able to work with them and use their best practices across the region to test some of the regulatory environment that we currently have in the city of Coeur d'Alene? I've talked to a number of folks who are struggling with some other factors about lot size and things like that, where we could come up with suggestions that say, hey, this is a zoning overlay. We can do better if we test some of the rules we're currently working within. I'd like to leverage their resources that they can bring to the table and be sure that we're thinking outside the box for those kinds of solutions to maximize the impact we have here. So that'll happen at the committee level, but to the overall board, there's a lot of really good resources here that can help us not reinvent the wheel and perhaps look around the corner as to what things are coming in this environment.
Yeah, that's a really good observation, because GGLO is bringing experience from Bend and Ketchum and on the west side, projects that they've done, 15 years ago on the west side. And I think what Commissioner Meyer is getting at is sometimes Mark Sindel will just make an offhand comment and we all kind of perk up and are like, boy, that seems like a pretty good idea. We don't do that here. And so I think that that's a really good observation, that the idea of trying to mine that free information.
Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? Good discussion, good discussion. And so you need a
Motion?
Mr. Chairman,
motion
I
to
would love
approve
to,
the ad hoc committee, et cetera, initiative.
I'll make a motion
And
to,
you can set a cap not to exceed value if you'd like in the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the Phase 3 Attainable Home Ownership Master Planning Initiative not to exceed $75,000.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Boyd.
My final item, Mr. Chairman, is I talked to Mr. Boyd about an Atlas project update, but I don't think we have much to share other than what we just talked about, unless Mr. Boyd has anything else he wants to share.
Thank you, Tony. I left too quickly. The only thing I was wanted to share was we've mentioned to the board before that we've been monitoring the I-90 work at the potential to acquire the structural soils that are coming off of that project and have them tipped at the Phase 3 site because it's very economical. Obviously, we only have the spread and compact expense. And so we're in the process of working those details out with the contractor, N.A. Dagerstrom, on the east component, on the east side of it. And so hopefully the next time I come, we'll be bringing forward an agreement for you guys to execute. But we're working on environmentally clearing the site with ITD, which shouldn't be an issue. And then Daniel Craig's working on modifying a agreement that would be between the contractor and Ignite for laying out the terms and conditions for it. So that's a positive piece of news that we've been working on or monitoring for, I don't know, it seems like a year, but that's progress. Any questions on that? That's all I had. Tony.
Questions? Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So I have, Mr. Chairman.
All righty. Next up is time for board commissioner comments. Any board commissioner comments? Commissioner Garcia.
I just want to thank the ad hoc committee that's doing the work on Phase 3 for recognizing that maybe we need some help and guidance and structure in the process to help us make some forward progress. And I was very appreciative of the inclusion of your comments in this document. It just helped me understand a little bit more about the conversations that are going on there. And I trust you guys completely to handle the process, but it's always nice to get a little insight along the way. So thank you very much for doing that work and continuing on that work.
I agree, totally.
Ditto.
I do. I have three things.
Shoot.
So, there's a lot of great discussion that goes on at the ad hoc committee, and I really appreciate Phil and that team being very responsive. We've waded into a lot of different things with caution, and it's a good group. I wanted to share with this group two other things. One is that there was a home share grant expansion feasibility study that was put out. I think Ignite was one of the funders, and that study's out. I'm going to make sure that Tony has a link to that to share. I think that our friends at GGLO might want to have a copy of that study because there's current information locally, because this study used Habitat for Humanity's larger data points and pulled a lot of that information on housing and demographics and stuff together. So that study will be released. I think there'll be a press release out on that. It will be out on the housingni.org website next week. But I will make sure that Tony has a copy of a link to the actual PDF and can send it out with the board minutes if you'd like.
Great.
So appreciate that, and it's very telling that we're still in a challenging housing time. The second thing is that I have a copy of the Housing Solutions Partnership Report Card. We didn't get graded by a teacher, but we created it ourselves, that basically in the close to last of 5 years, it kind of summarizes the projects that have been launched, what's currently underway, and what's coming up. There's a copy of this at housingni.org, but I will leave some copies for the rest of the board so they know some of the work that's happening there.
You said you had three.
The first one was a thank you and an explanation and an appreciation of the in-depth work of the ad hoc committee too.
Thanks very much. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion then to adjourn.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned, and Mike, that's a wrap. Thanks, everyone.